Welcome back for our third and maybe our final stewardship chat as we are trying to wrap this up. And the way that we wrapped it up the other night, I want to come back to our board, which was created at the beginning of our conversations about stewardship at our stewardship event. And one of the phrases that continued to jump out at me, Buddy talked about anxiety, is just the phrase, not enough, and what that conjures for us. And in this pandemic time, and as we're coming out of this pandemic time, one of the things that I was talking with somebody about yesterday actually was sort of a deer in the headlights expression that they were getting from a lot of people as they were asked to begin to think about recommitting to the church in mind and body and spirit, and their time and their energy. And I expect for some people it's the same way when they come to try to fill out their pledge cards, because we don't know what's coming up, because we don't know what the year has come to. People are afraid to sign their name on a list, both in terms of how much money that they're going to give or how much commitment they're willing to make, because during the pandemic, during that year and a half plus, which is plus, especially during that quarantine time, we all, even if you were working from home or having to go to work in some way, form, or fashion, it gave us pause to reflect on what is important to us and what we value. It also maybe made us realize that the way we were spending our time and energy beforehand was not the way we want to spend our time and energy now, and our money as well. And as we're coming out of this, or coming to a different place in this, to evaluate now what do I want my life to look like beyond this, and how do I want to spend my time, and how do I want to spend my money. But there's also this fear of, but I don't want to give up my time. And I don't know if I'm going to have enough money to pledge like I used to, because I don't know if I'm going to be making that much money. Or I want to spend my money differently than I used to spend it. And so there's this fear that's sort of caught up in this moving. Is it ever going to end? But also, what is this new world going to look like? And am I going to have the energy and time and resources to do it?
Yeah.
What that's going to look like, right?
I think that the only honest thing that church people can say about that is the truth, that we understand what that feels like. Everybody, I think, in the world has had to face a new insecurity. None of us could have imagined 18 months ago that our lives would be as changed by the pandemic as they have been. Now, it is true that people at a high end of it in some circles have done extremely well. That's not where most of us live under any circumstances. And back to what I was saying earlier, the truth of the matter is the people at the high end are just as insecure in their own internal anxiety about it as anybody else, because accumulated wealth doesn't make you secure. It gives you something, but it doesn't give you that. I think that if these 18 months, though, have taught us anything, and I happen to believe that they have taught us something, it is that intentionality about what really matters has to be a huge part of our lives going forward from here. Just one moment of personal reflection. I mean, I moved back to Jackson in the middle of a pandemic.
Me too.
Yeah, you did. And I had left the state thinking that I would never be back. Not that I don't love my home state, I do. But I thought that I would find what I really wanted and needed more somewhere else than here. And the loneliness that came from this pandemic helped me to see that in my own little tiny piece of the story, being back near my family really mattered a whole lot to me. And the thing that I see, and I'm going to quit preaching in a moment, but the thing that I've seen
No, you
as,
won't.
well, I probably won't. As we've sort of emerged from our shadows, people do want to be back in church. I've seen people's eyes light up when we've run into each other at church in ways when we haven't seen each other for a long time. That matters. I think that tells us something.
Yeah, I think you're right. And that's what I hear. I was talking to somebody last night, and they're like, I've watched from home, and it's been helpful, but we are coming back. It is just time. We have got to reconnect with our people. And I think, again, it goes back to that, our pie. We all have a pie, and our pie has... It's the sum of our life and our resources and our energy and our money and all of those things. And this time has allowed us, like it or not, regardless of the circumstances of those 18 months, to evaluate our pie. You evaluated your
Absolutely.
pie. And you decided that your pie did not look like what you wanted it to look like. So you had to shift. You had to, the language of this time is pivot.
Yes.
Right? And so I think even in our stewardship conversations and even in the church, and honestly, as we evaluate our budget for the church, we've got to do that hard work of looking at our pie and discerning, is this what our pie looked like before, what we want our pie to look like now? And included in that is how we expend all of that. How do we cut that pie up and share that? And we have to work really hard sometimes to keep the slivers the way that we want them. But I think that's what this is about. And the thing is that we get the opportunity to make some of those decisions now that maybe we slipped into before. And I think the hard part is going to be not to slip back into some of those habits of how we expend all of our time and energy and money. And for the church, it's the same. Do we want to spend all of our time and energy in as I say, majoring in the minors, or do we want to figure out what the majors are that we want to spend our time and energy on here at St. James and in the larger church and in our lives? So, it does speak to stewardship to me, because it also says, how do we want to spend our money? And when we look at our pie, which we have to do every year many, many times, we have to decide which are the parts of the pie we really can't do anything about. But then there's this big chunk that we can. And how are we going to do that?
Yeah.
But we can only do that here at St. James with everybody else doing that good, hard, intentional work at home. You figuring out what your pie looks like. And as Buddy has said again and again and again, determining what our values are and how we're going to try to live a life that perpetuates that.
Right.
For you, for me, we have found that the church embodies that in all of its imperfection.
Right.
In all of the things that we do wrong as a church, there are so many more things that we do right, and that I want to give financially and physically in all of those ways to help perpetuate that, and maybe help to shift and pivot and make that even better. But that we all have that opportunity to make that decision.
Amen. I don't know what else to say to that.
So we hope that you will do that good work too. And we'll see you here at church some Sunday or some Wednesday, or we'll catch you online or wherever it is. And just remember, the invitation is there to touch base with me, to touch base with David, to touch base with Buddy, or any of us, that we might connect with one another and be the people of God more fully as we move forward here and now. Go in peace.